by a final score of 2-1. There you see the stats from the game, but the only one that matters, Colombia picking up all 3 points. What does it mean in the table? Well, there you see it. Colombia sitting third, 2 places ahead of Brazil.
But who's sitting just behind them? Who's above Brazil?
Tucked in there.
Who's above Brazil?
After a scoreless draw against Ecuador.
Vamos, Venezuela! I just become about Venezuela.
Top 6 get the automatic bid to the World Cup, 7th into the Intercontinental Playoff. Joining us now, our colleague from ESPN.
He's not nearly as happy. Not nearly as happy.
If Gustavo's on, we all know what happened.
Brazil lost.
Yes. Gustavo,
you don't need to know what happened. You know.
Gustavo, great to have you on the show. Sorry it's with Brazil 5th in the CONMEBOL table. What's going on with your national team, man?
Hello, guys. It's always a pleasure to be here. Well, I'm getting used to be called always when Brazil is struggling. And Brazil is struggling a lot in the last days. Well, the match against Colombia was one more poor performance from this team coached by Fernando Diniz. Against Colombia, Brazil had many problems, especially in both fullbacks. Brazil nowadays has a huge problem at both fullbacks. Emerson Royal isn't a player for the Brazilian national team, isn't a player at the highest level that Brazil needs at this position. Brazil is missing Danilo, who is not the best right back in Brazilian history. We have already Cafu, many other great players like Jorginho. We are really having some problems at this position, but Danilo is a very reliable player, a very strong defensive player. Emerson Royal had a terrible match against Colombia, who was completely dominated by the Colombians. At left back, Renan Lodge, who now is playing for Olympique de Marseille in France, didn't also play well. And Brazil tactically was a mess, a huge mess. When you watch the player, when you watch the match again, you can see that Brazil had no midfield. Brazil had the defense playing so low, 4 forwards pressing high, and 2 midfielders, Bruno Guimarães and André, lost in tactical translation. They were completely lost in the match, and Colombia could see that, and they dominated the midfield. They started to create chances, and they deserved the comeback. They really deserved the comeback. Colombia was the best team on the field yesterday in Barranquilla, and now Brazil will face a bigger problem against Argentina at Maracanã.
That game coming up on Tuesday. Now, the last window, Ale, when we focus on Brazil, you could focus on Neymar, right? The fact that he didn't play well against Venezuela, got hurt in the next game. You can't blame Neymar against Colombia, so who do you blame from a Brazilian perspective?
Well, and Gustavo just mentioned it there. I can't believe I'm saying this about Brazil. There's a shortage of talent currently in Brazil. There is. Historically, when you think about right backs for Brazil, and Gustavo mentioned Jorginho and Cafu and Dani Alves, look, you can go down the list, and you're looking at Emerson Royal. Where? What? Emerson Royal is the right back. Go to the left back position. You can go to Branco. You can go to Roberto Carlos. Yeah, you can go down the list as much as you possibly want, and Renan Lodi is your guy. So yes. That addresses one point. There's a shortage of talent in Brazil. Let's come to that realization. It's happening. Beyond that, I don't think Fernando Diniz understands that there's a shortage of talent in Brazil. Because I don't know if it's being naive or being arrogant, but you can't set up a team in the manner in which he did with 4 out-and-out strikers, essentially, 4 really, truly attacking players, and 4 defenders, and then no structure in the midfield, whereas we attack with those 4, we'll defend with those 4, and then all this space over here, Colombia, you can have it. You can have it because we're not going to control it. The moment in which Vini Jr. goes down with an injury, it actually gave an opportunity for Fernando Diniz to make some sort of adjustment in terms of the structure and tactical awareness of the team. No. We bring out another striker, Joao Pedro. Yeah, you get up top. We'll continue to attack. And the truth is that this team right now, they're not good enough to outscore teams. They're not good enough to defend against teams that can pose problems in 1v1 situations, and they're not dominating the midfield. Other than that, they're doing great. Brazil right now is having an issue with both defending, attacking, and coaches' decisions. Other than that, yeah, it's all pretty good for Brazil.
So good.
Hey, I can only sum it up in one way, and I don't want to make this about Venezuela, which I could. But we are deep, well, not deep, but 5 matches into this World Cup qualifying cycle. And however you want to slice it, however you want to explain it, Venezuela right now is above Brazil. That should paint a very clear picture as to where Brazil is right now.
Gustavo, Fernando Diniz, the manager, how much criticism, how much pressure is he under? If things go sideways at Maracanã on Tuesday against Argentina, could Brazil be looking for a replacement?
Yeah, no, actually a replacement, no, because Brazil is still waiting for Carlo Ancelotti. So Fernando Diniz will probably be the manager till June. We don't know if he's going to be the manager in the at the Copa America, or if Carlo Ancelotti will arrive or not for the Copa America. But the reality is this one, that Brazil is waiting for Carlo Ancelotti. Fernando Diniz, who is, because he's also the manager of Fluminense, Libertadores champion, who is making a really good work in the Brazilian football. When he went to the Brazilian team, he went as an interim to help. And also, we have to understand that the Brazilian Confederation thought that they could keep Ramon Menezes as the manager, who is the manager of the under-20 team. But everybody remembers what happened in the match against the African teams. So CBF realized that, we cannot keep Ramon Menezes. So let's take Fernando Diniz for some months till Carlo Ancelotti arrives. And we are seeing what's happening. Brazil is playing as an interim team, as his coach. Brazil doesn't have a system. Brazil isn't strong enough to beat their rivals in South America. When we had Tite as the manager, Brazil almost didn't lose any match for any rival in South America. Now anyone can beat Brazil. No team has fear to play against Brazil nowadays, because they know that Brazil is a huge mess, especially tactically. The match yesterday was unbelievable. As Alejandro said, that when Brazil lose Vinicius Junior, and when Real Madrid will lose Vinicius Junior for some weeks also. When Brazil loses Vinicius Junior, everybody could see that there was no midfield, that Brazil needed some help in the midfield, that Bruno Guimarães was lost, that André was lost, and Fernando Diniz couldn't realize that. Fernando Diniz is a very unique coach with very unique ideas, and he needs time. He needs time to work with their players. In Fluminense, everything brilliant, everything beautiful. With the national squad, you don't have this time. You have to understand that you have to change some things to adapt your ideas to the players and to the time that you have to practice with the players.
How big an impact do you think this kind of back and forth, lack of clarity when it comes to Brazil's managers having on the performances we're seeing from the team?
Well, of course it has an impact. Because if you're a player, you want to know, indeed, if this is the guy. If this is our manager, I need to know this is going to be our manager, because I think that clarifies everything for the players. And all the players, all they want to be concerned with is making decisions on the field and resolving issues on the field. This unresolved situation with the Brazilian Federation and the head coaching position is one that, of course, trickles down to the field. Having said that, it is the responsibility of Fernando Diniz to realize that you have an Emerson Royal, a guy that cannot keep up in 1v1 situations against Luis Diaz. And you only needed to watch the first 25 minutes of this game to say, we have a mismatch here. This is a problem. I need to address this. So tactically, I need to adapt. Regardless of what my genius ideas may be coming in and all the things that I want to do in this free-flowing, open, attacking football that I want to play, that I play with Fluminense and I want to play with the Brazilian national team. Now it's about problem solving in the now. Not in the time that you get to work with the national team, but in the now, in the moment. What do you do to address the fact that Luis Diaz is killing Emerson Royal? What do you do? And they didn't do anything. Marquinhos was having to come out into wider areas and sort of kind of create a 2v1 against Luis Diaz. But guess what happens? If Marquinhos gets to the wider area, it creates issues in the middle. And there was no help coming from the midfield. So that's my concern. As much as you may have an issue with the Brazilian Federation and actually determining and deciding and saying, this is going to be our manager for the now and for the foreseeable future, that is an issue, of course. But then the decisions that need to be made in the now by Fernando Diniz are not being made either. And guess what? It doesn't get any easier because Argentina is coming. Regardless of what you think, Argentina is a better team than Colombia, and they're coming to Maracanã after having lost a game against Uruguay. They need points as well. This is going to be really, really difficult for Brazil, and it's going to be a critical night for the future of both the Brazilian national team and Fernando Diniz, because I know what Gustavo is saying. But if Argentina goes into Maracanã and wipes the floor with Brazil, somebody's going to have to take a responsibility for this. Somebody's going to have to take the blame, and it's not going to be the players.
Gustavo, is there anybody in Brazil talking about the possibility that Carlo Ancelotti might not actually come? Because there's reports today out of Spain that he's working on a 2-year contract extension with Real Madrid.
Yes. People now in Brazil started to talk about it. What happened from the beginning, from the first moment when the Brazilian president, the president of Brazilian Federation, talked to people near to Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti never signed anything with Brazil. Brazil has his word. The Brazilian Federation has Carlo Ancelotti words that he will be the manager. But we are talking about football. We are talking about a sport that changes everything from one day to the other. So we can imagine Real Madrid, even with so many problems of injuries, we can see Real Madrid winning La Liga or fighting till the end for the Champions League with so many young players, maybe hiring more young players in the next window. Well, Carlo Ancelotti can renew his contract. He can change his mind. So it's a very, very high risk that the Brazilian Federation took, because you cannot sign this coach. You only have his words. But you're talking about football. Everything can change. So, yes, now people in Brazil are realizing that maybe Carlo Ancelotti won't be the manager. Oh, if Carlo Ancelotti won't be the manager, so we have a really, really big problem, because with Fernando Diniz, the things aren't working well. So, yes, the situation is getting each day more complicated.